Hello, friend. Who did the trailer, Barry? It's so impactful. My goodness.
Me. I did all the editing. The main part of my career has been editing for over 40 years. And I've gotten into, well, I've always made films. I've always made my own films since junior high. Actually, I started in eighth grade. But professionally, I was an editor until recently, until I started directing more the last 5, 6, 7 years or so. But yeah,
You know,
I'm very comfortable editing. That's my sweet spot.
well, obviously that's a strength because, it just blows you away. This incredible trailer. We can't wait to see the film. This is a big deal. This has just had its first debut to a standing ovation, from what I understand, for you and Tarika. 15 minutes at the New York State
Mhm.
Writers Institute, right? Albany Film Festival at SUNY Albany. How did that feel, Tarika Barry?
You go first, Barry.
It was fabulous. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know much about the festival, but it was packed room, and you could just tell. When you're in a theater, no matter what the film is, a short or a documentary or a feature, when people are really, really into it, you can just sense it. And it's like when people start getting bored, you can kind of tell. You can hear them shifting, and I mean, people were literally on the edge of their seat the whole way. And then when it finished, they just stood up and were really, really excited. And it was a real great moment. And like I mentioned earlier, they were clapping for me and for the film, but also for Tariq because he was there and, just his personal journey.
Now, I can imagine that this was a triumphant moment after immense trials and tribulations and challenges. Tariq, you shared on part one of Energy Diagnostics Podcast the impact to your career and being hired and things. If you want to share a little bit about that and what it meant to have the validation, the accolades at the film festival.
For me, a lot of people who were maybe on the fence or doubtful about some things, it cleared up a lot for people that had seen it that were wondering. And then maybe some of them didn't want to come to me with certain questions personally. So it was informative for them in that sense. And like I said previously, a really good chance and opportunity for my narrative to be controlled more by me than the government, the FBI, the U.S. Attorney's Office, the newspapers, and other things, which tended to lean more towards convicting me and making sure that I was, early on. And that's when people first Google my name, those are some of the first things that still come up now, you know.
Can imagine that's just brutal. And Barry, obviously, you can hear what a positive impact this has had in Tariq's life and will continue to as it gets out there more. Then again, this was just revealed and there's more coming. Barry, what moved you to create this film?
There's one person not on this podcast who is very, very important to all this, and his name is John Feeney. He's a virtuoso classical bassist, and we've been very, very close friends since high school. We went to high school together in Glenrock, New Jersey, and I guess even though I'm not a musician, I guess there's something about our artistic spirits or whatever that meshed, and we just became really close friends, and we still are. I mean, obviously, I've been in LA since 1978, a long time, but we always kept in touch, and I would try to see him when I would go back. So a couple of years ago, I get a call from John, and he goes, "I got to talk to you." And I said, "Okay." And he said, "I just met a guy and I'm becoming friends with him, and he's got the most incredible story you've ever heard, and we have to make a film about him." And I'm like, "Okay." I mean, that's a lot in one sentence, but I'm open to hearing about it. And so he had met Tarik. Tarik had contacted John, which to me, now that I know more about, obviously now I know a lot more what's going on, but at that time I didn't. But the fact that Tarik on his own, first of all, Tarik is obviously an incredibly accomplished jazz bassist. I mean, we've all heard about who he's played with in his career. And so for him at this stage of his career to seek out the best that are there, that are the best that there are, to improve himself says a lot about him, and says a lot. Especially John is not even a jazz player, but they just hit it off, and I guess they're really just kindred spirits. And I he worked with John, I guess more specifically like with Boeing and things like that. But I think just the two of them had so much in common that it's been a great relationship. So next time I went back east, we arranged for Tarik to come down to John's house, and we met and spent some time together. And then we started having Zoom calls, the three of us, fleshing out his story. And obviously I was amazed at his story. It's incredible what he's been through and how he's overcome it. Because to be honest, I was a little wary at first, not because of anything specifically with Tarik, but I had just finished this other film. I wasn't really ready to start something else. But in any case, it all worked out. So I said, well, let's go up and shoot Tarik's interview, and we'll shoot him playing. And we shot him playing at the club in Troy. And it went great. And then, we shot on the farm. And then a few months later, I came back east again. We shot in the Albany area. The lawyers who know Tarik and know the story and gave a lot of great background in the film. And then the next day we drove down to Brooklyn and interviewed some of his friends, and they were all just fantastic. I mean, you've talked about Joy, how, some things are just faded. Well, I mean, I couldn't believe it. Usually, when you're making a documentary, there's most of the interviews you hope will be good, but you never expect all of them to be they were just all great. I mean, they obviously all loved Tarik and gave great insight into his story. So that's in a nutshell how it happened.
Well, that's pretty fascinating how it all came together in your filming schedule. And listen, you're a master filmmaker. The shots that we see in the trailer, your editing, like, what it seems to me that what I'm hearing is there's so much positive intention, passion, good heart, and goodwill on behalf of Tarik and getting his story out from everyone interviewed, everyone participating in this, and of course, you making this film. I loved hearing about the lifelong bond and the trust with John Feeney. So if John says, hey, listen, we got to have this conversation, we got to talk about, and doing something for Tarik, you were like, yep, no problem, let's meet. And you made that time and space, that implicit trust, and that's when the magic happens. Dan, did you want to share something about that?
It's really fascinating to look. I'm sure you get a lot of ideas coming at you, right, in the creative field like that. And just kind of reiterate what Joy had said, to have the trust of someone who, it's so great when we have connections like that. Like you said, you've been in LA since the late 70s, but you can come back and pick up with somebody, and it's like you just saw them yesterday. And that's when we know we have somebody that we are connected to, even like you said, even if it's not the same, we're not in the same world, but we're doing our creative things together, and he brings you this story. And you're like, this Tarik, I know some folks I play with that have played with Tarik as well. And he's one of those guys where everybody just has nothing but positive things to say about Tarik. So it's to meet him in such a serendipitous way as we did over after our time at Kripalu, and just get together and meet this guy. And here we are 2 months later, having these great conversations and really shining a light on this, bringing this forward. And hopefully it continues to grow, and the message can get out there that these things do happen, and we have to make it known.
We're really looking forward. There's a lot of things to look forward to with this film. And I want to just remind our viewers that you want to go to TarikShah.com and also /teacher. He's a master educator. And if you want to improve, and if you want to learn from a master with patience, heart, and positive intent, he's your guy, you know. And we also have the world-renowned filmmaker, Barry Rubinow. .com. Hello. Gotta check out. Gosh, I love reading about a life well lived. Dan and I were really amazed doing a deep dive in your site and your material, Barry, but we gotta ask, Dan and I, we're so curious, like, what is your longing for this documentary? What is it that you see for this?
Great question. I see this as a very extremely inspiring story. Everybody goes through ups and downs, bad days, bad weeks, bad years. Everyone has challenges. Everyone has a cross to bear, but not too many people have had to go through what Tarik had to go through. And for him to come out of it, you know, like Wendy Oxenhorn says in the film, she says, it's one of the most beautiful lines in the film. She goes, here he goes through 2.5 years of solitary confinement, you know, not seeing the sun in a tiny little cell. I mean, that's something, it's hard to get your head around that. But in any case, to go through 2.5 years of that and then another 12 years of jail and come out. And she said he got through it by making himself a better person. He's not bitter. He's not spitting at the world, how angry he is. He's a better person. And that to me is the inspiring part of the story. And that's what I would hope people would get out of it, that no matter what you're going through, you can get through it.
I said to Tarik in part one that my eyes couldn't take in. It's amazing the filter we have on perception, Barry, really. I kept reading 31 days, but it wasn't 31 days. It was 31 months in solitary confinement. And I loved how you capture that in the trailer too. The average person would go insane. And we talked about the discipline of being a professor of martial arts and jiu-jitsu, being able to support you as well as your faith, Tarik, in those dark nights. This is a film that needs to be seen because it's inspiring the resiliency of your remarkable spirit. And as a human being, you think we all have challenges, right? We all have our cross to bear, Barry. That was a great point. And you want to wake up and sit up and stand up and move forward. This is the film that is going to help you to find it within you, because when you see what Tarik went through and you imagine your own life, it can inspire you to triumph from out of trauma similarly and in your own unique way. Tarik, what do you want to say to that?
First, I have no magical thing to say other than it's an ongoing work. It's an ongoing task. And sometimes as human beings, we don't realize how important self-indictment is. But even in that self-indictment, if you want to have good character with other people, you first have to have good character with yourself. So not to be so rough on yourself. You can see the things, acknowledge them, see what's real or things that you really want to work on, then you have to work on them. Like I always use for years with my students, I say you have to build a habit because habits are the hardest things to break. Like for instance, if there's a very stingy man, very tight-fisted man who really wants to be magnanimous and charitable, then what he has to do is he has to go opposite to his stinginess and his tight-fistedness for an extended period of time in order to develop the habit of being magnanimous. Then it won't leave him so quickly. Him or her won't leave them so quickly because habits are the hardest things to break. Yeah. So throughout life, in our sense of what is real success, it's not necessarily financial success. Why do we know that? Because we see so many people throughout history who have been successful in the media, successful in their art, becoming famous, and really successful with a lot of money, and they've taken their own lives. And I'm not making small of that. They've taken their own lives. So it just, that should be enough proof for us that that's not the real success, that the real success is looking at oneself and working on developing virtuous character, becoming a better human being. That's really the success. Understanding what your place is in assisting humanity and being the caretaker of this earth.
Don't ask me to follow up on that one.
I don't want to say. I don't want to say. No, it's like, who's going to follow up on that? Nobody.
What I want to say, man, is I think I want one of them bases on your wall, man. You did?
Just for Eddie.
I'll bring him down. We'll get together.
Yes, we got to. We have to.
For sure. To have that outlook, and for you, as you said earlier, to have that progress, that one step at a time, do that thing. We're doing something so small in our everyday, but it's sending out those ripples across, and we don't know who that's going to get to and what that smile, that brightness in our personality that day, our character that we've developed, that we carry with us to the post office when we greet our dog or our cat, and what that is going to do. There are so many things that we do that affect others, and we will never know.
Barry jumped on just a couple of hours ago from LA. He's like, what time is that Eastern Standard?
Right.
Okay, let me sync up. And he's there.
Right.
Like, that's synchronicity. You know, when you're in alignment with your path, look for those breadcrumbs. So, you know, things just open up. Synchronicity. When you are really living your best life, doing your best, which is what Tarik Shah does each and every day. TarikShah.com. And you want to check out that trailer. We're going to add it in the notes. Please subscribe to Bold Brave TV for wonderful content like this from the masters themselves. Thank you so much for being here on Energy Diagnostics Podcast on Bold Brave TV.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.